Okay, I think we could start now. We are, okay. Morning all. We are 9 lines up from the bottom of Dalet Amud Aleph 4a. The first one in line is Haisa, or you could count 4 lines down from the bottom of the second picture. Haisa Gevaya Mechaf Am.
Just kidding. Just messing with you.
Haisa Gevaya Mechaf Ama. If someone builds a house, if you have a structure, a sukkah which is higher than 20 amos, which you understand is going to be invalid, Obana Isfa be'emtiasa, and you build in the middle, you build a platform, and therefore that's by raising the inside up a little bit, so therefore the airspace inside of it, at least above the platform, is no longer 20 amos. If there's more than 4 amos from the edge of the platform to the wall, then we're looking at a platform with no walls, because we cannot go and say, like yesterday we learned, can't say that the walls get bent inwards. Therefore, because it has to be within 4 amos for us to say that from the wall to wherever we want it to go. So if it's more than 4 amos on each side, it's going to be possible. But at least on 3 sides, it's less than 4 amos from the edge of the platform to the wall, then we could say that it's going to be kosher based on what we learned before, the bent wall. My kamashmlan, so what are you trying to tell us? But what do you mean? We spoke the previous 2 cases in the Mishnah that we mentioned yesterday is also utilizing Doifin Akuma, this idea of a bent wall. So what is the novel idea that this idea that with the idea of a platform in middle is going to come to help us, come to teach us? What new? So I might think you could go ahead and you could say that a bent wall, this bent wall clause, which is halacha Moshe Sinai, halacha from not written down, rather it's orally given to Moshe on Har Sinai and sent and through the generations, that can only be used once, only on one wall. We can't use that for all the walls. Perhaps you cannot go ahead and use it for every single wall. The chiddush is that yes, you are allowed to go and use it for all 3 walls. So that's the idea. You're able to use, or 4 walls, you're able to use this clause of Doifin Akuma, of a bent wall, for all 4 walls. Now, another case. Now we're going to the other case in the Mishnah. If it's less than yud tfachim, we learned that if it's a sukkah, if the airspace in the sukkah is less than 10 tfachim, it's going to be invalid. And you go ahead and you start digging a ditch inside the sukkah. So now the airspace of the sukkah is no longer 10; it's 11 because you built you built downwards. You need, it works on condition, but we need walls. Just because you have a sukkah and now you have a hole in it, where are the walls? We have to see the walls. So in this case, unlike before, we said you need 4 amos, you need 3 tfachim. If the ditch, or the walls of the ditch, is within 3 tfachim, which is not much, it's not that much, of the wall, then we'll say that the wall is a continuation of the small ditch that you built. So you have a beginning of a ditch, which is extremely small, it's less than just a tapa, that's all you really need. And then we'll say that it starts in the beginning of the ditch and it's going upwards and sort of slopes, hit the current wall and goes all the way up to 10 tfachim, plus a little bit of the ditch, but on condition that the ditch is within 3 tfachim of the wall for us to utilize lavud. Lavud again is also halacha Moshe Sinai, and halacha tells us that when there's a gap less than 3 tfachim, we ignore the gap and we consider that one continuous space of. So if you have 2 beams and there's less than 3 tfachim, we say that's one big beam. So you need 3 tfachim from the ditch to the wall. Now we just turned onto 4b. We're on the top of 4b. If it's less than 3 tfachim from the edge of the ditch to the wall, at that point we will say that it is kosher. Why is Doifin Akuma 4 amos? We said in order to have the bent wall clause, it has to be up to. We can utilize that up to 4 amos from the edge of the platform all the way to the wall. But here, by the case of the ditch, where you're increasing the amount of space in the sukkah, we say it doesn't work unless it's 3 tfachim from the wall. For us to utilize the current less than 10 tfachim wall to add it on to the bit in the ditch, it has to be 3 tfachim from the wall. And remember, they're both halacha ma'aseh misena. Over there, in the case of Daif and Akum, in the case of the 20 amas, and you're building a platform, and we're saying that it's bending. Over there, you have a wall. You have a halachic wall. Any wall over 20 amas is a halachic 20. Sorry, any wall over 10 tefachim is a halachic wall. But the problem is, in this case, is that it's an invalid wall for a sukkah. But for a mechitza, it's going to work fine, right? You could use that as a mechitza. It is 100% considered a halachic wall. Mechitza for sure. It's a mechitza between if someone has, if someone for Sefer Torah has to be separate from let's say a restroom. That's a good enough mechitza. However, hacha in the case of the 10 tefachim, it's the sukkah is less than 10 tefachim. The shavi l'doifim pachseish sag hacha the shavi l'doifim pachseish tefachim ein ilay. Now over here, in this case of the small sukkah, you don't have a wall. Halachically, it's nothing. Less than 10 tefachim is not a halachic wall. Therefore, in order to create a wall from anew, which we're using lavud, then we need more stringent measurement of 3 tefachim. In the case where you already have a 20 amos wall, and all you want to do is sort of shorten it with a platform, then we say, well, you have a halachic wall. You have an additional issue, a sukkah issue only, that you need the air space inside to be less than 20 amos. Therefore, we're willing to bend it. So the answer is, when there's already a legal wall, then we use 4 amos. When there is no wall in front of us, because anything less than tefachim is not considered a wall, then we have to utilize lavud. And that is 3 tefachim because you have no wall. In order to create a wall, you need 3 tefachim. In order to use it, to put it together, the ditch wall and the real wall, to create a halachic wall, we're going to be stringent, make you have at least 3 tefachim in between the area. Now with that, we continue about 6 lines from the top. If I have if the sukkah is higher than 20 amos, and I go ahead and build a platform in the middle of it, which is higher than 10 tefachim. Based by hechsher sukkah, and this little platform is more than 7 and a little bit by 7 and a little bit. That's what gives the ability. That's what gives us the kosher size of sukkah. And so I have my 20 amos high huge sukkah, and right in smack in the middle, I have a platform, a platform which is more than 10 tefachim, and on and top of it is the size of sukkah. What's the halacha? Yesh by hechsher sukkah, savar b'ayomimar, good asach mechitza. So I would say as follows. So what we could say is that since I'm on a platform which is 10 tefachim high, and 10 tefachim is already considered a halachic wall, so therefore I'll say that I have a platform, I have a wall. So let this wall currently, which I'm on top of, let it go. This wall, let it go all the way up to the top. So I hope this helps. You see this over here. So over here is my big sukkah. I'm in a giant sukkah, and then there's a platform over here, which is more than 10 tefachim high. So I'm going to say the platform goes all the way to the top because I already have a wall here. This is called a halachic wall, even though I'm on top of it. So it goes all the way up, and all 4 so it goes all the way up to the top, and therefore I'll have a kosher sukkah within this puzzle sukkah. That's what we want to propose. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hope it out. It has to be 7. In order to have a kosher sukkah, it has 7 and a little tefachim by 7 little tefachim. 7 point something tefachim by 7 point something tefachim.
Party on it. It's a party platform.
Rava argues. Rava says, if you look in this case, we don't see any real mechitza because you're on a platform. You're utilizing the 10 tefachim of the platform. That no one knows that's a wall. You need something to at least go up a little bit in order to utilize this idea that once the wall starts going up, it goes all the way up to Shemayim. That you need a proper wall. Over here, you don't have a proper wall. You just have a platform without any gate around it. Therefore, Rava is going to argue. Now we're going to go into this idea. So if I go ahead and I have, I take four beams, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I throw schach on top of it. Is that a kosher sukkah? So I think it would not be because there's no walls, right? It's just 4. It's just 4 pillars on each side. Not Arba can do some sikach hagam. Rabbi Yaakov machshir v'cham paisim. Rabbi Yaakov says it's kosher, and we'll have to see eventually why. We'll see later on why he says kosher. Chacham says pasul. How could it be kosher? It's missing. It doesn't have any walls. Amar Bun machlekes al sfas hagat. Now there's 2 ways to understand. There's 2 ways for us to understand, but 2 potential ways for us to understand what this argument is built on. According to Rav Huna, the argument is built on that you're at the edge of the wall, at the edge of a wall. So you're on top of a building, and You're on top of a building. Use this one. We're on top of a building over here. This one. We're on top of a building. So you have one wall, and you have a second wall, and we're saying, and you have a little bit of a peg over there, or whatever, like you have something over there which is on all four sides. So we say this goes up from the building. So it goes from the building, and then continues going up all the way. So you have so technically in that case you actually have, so in this case you have a real wall over here plus a little bit of that beam. So Rak is Savar. Rabbi Yaakov says in this specific case, then we will let the walls of the building continue upwards. Rabbanan Sabri, Rabbanan argue, and they say no, we don't say good asach mechitzasa. I'm assuming the reason is because you don't have any, as we said before, you don't have any recognizable wall. All you have is the foundation or the walls of the building. I don't see a recognizable wall for the sukkah itself. According to Rabbi Yaakov, in the middle of the sukkah, in the middle of the roof. So if you go ahead and you build something like this, just smack right in the middle of the roof, just 4 beams, throw this chach on top, yeah, right over there. Then that is not going to work according to. That's not going to work according to Rabbi Yaakov. Now, that's not according to Rabbi Yaakov. Everyone agrees that's not going to work because there's nothing to work with. All you have is 4 beams. There's nothing at all what to work with. Absolutely nothing to work with. Now, according to this, so this problem is, that's good. That's according to Rabbi Yaakov. Yaakov understands that everyone will agree 4 beams randomly in a random spot is not going to work unless at the edge of a roof we already have the walls of the building going up, and then we could assume the walls of the building. We could envision the walls of the building going further up by itself. And according to Rabbi, that's according to Yaakov. That's according to Rav Huna's understanding of Yaakov, and Rav Huna's understanding of the Rabbanan, and said that even that's not going to work.
We had the case where there was 4 old corners, and it made walls like for drawing water or something.
No, we're going to get to that soon.
Huh?
We're going to get to that soon.
Okay.
Yibailuhu, that was Rav Huna's understanding. Rav Nachman argues the whole machlekes between Rabbi Yaakov and the Chachamim, if this 4 beam sukkah could work, is only the machlekes is in the middle and not on the side. That's according to Rav Nachman. The question is, what did he mean by that? That Rav Nachman and Rabbi Yaakov and the Rabbanan are arguing in the middle of the sukkah. But the rabbis would agree that on the edge of the roof, where at least you could start utilizing the walls of the building, the rabbis would agree to. Or do we say that according to Rav Nachman, according to the way Rav Nachman understands it, there is a machlekes both ways. That there, according to Rav Nachman, the machlekes between Rabbi Yaakov and the Rabbanan is going on both cases, whether it's on the middle of the roof, whether it's on the side of the roof. And the answer is taken. We don't know the answer. We don't know how Rav Nachman understands the machlekes on the edge of the roof. Is that included in the machlekes, or even the rabbis would agree it would work? Take it. We don't have an answer to it. Okay, Dalid. So right now, where we're holding is that according to Rava, you need mechitzas and nikaris. You need real mechitzas. So according to him, according to Rava, we understand is that you can never utilize. If I have a platform, whether I build a platform in my sukkah or I'm on top of a roof, you can never utilize the side walls to imagine they're going up unless you have already a wall. Unless you good asik only works this idea of going straight up to Shemaim. So if you have a wall of 10 tefachim already, a proper wall of 10 tefachim. But that's according to Rava. And then, however, we have a machlekes between Rav Huna and Rav Nachman what the rabbis hold. According to Rav Huna, the rabbis hold that you never say that. You say like that's what Rava was basing on. According to even on the edge of a roof, Rav Huna understand that the rabbis say you cannot utilize the walls of the building. And according to Rav Nachman, we're not sure. We're not sure what the rabbis hold. We left that as a take. If I take 4 beams and I place them in the ground and I put a schach over, Rabbi Yaakov Machshav Chavam Paislim. That's what we just said. Yach says it's kosher, and the rabbi says it's possible. So we want to prove from here. So we have a question here this is not like there's a question of Rav Huna. Rav Huna understood on the middle of the roof. Everyone agrees. Even Rav Yaakov would agree that a sukkah in middle of the roof is not kosher. Over here we see a different. Over here we say that he put the case is not on the roof. We're talking about taking 4 beams and place it on the actual ground, random spot on the ground. That's like in the middle of the roof. And Rabbi Yaakov says it's okay. Rav Huna understood that Rabbi Yaakov only says at the edge of the roof, not in the middle of the roof. So this is a question on Rabbi Yaakov. So Rabbi Yaakov. It's a question on Rav Huna. Tiyufta Rav Huna Tiyufta. So this is a question on Tiyufta that we cannot answer. Va'oid, and furthermore, Emza who depligi. Va'oid, furthermore, Va'oid be'emza who depligi. Avlas fasagag tivrakol kshira. But not only that in middle, according to this, if the homachleikis, not only that. So number one, it's a question of Rav Huna that said that Rav Yaakov would agree that in the middle of the roof it doesn't work. But we see according to Rav Yaakov, middle of the roof it will work, just like it works in a random spot on the ground. But even furthermore, Rav Huna's total understanding of the machlekes between Rabbi Yaakov and the Rabbanan in the Mishnah is wrong, because it would seem that the whole machlekes is only on the side of the roof. Even in the whole machlekes is in the middle. So if we could figure out from there if the whole machlekes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Yaakov is if in the middle of the roof there's a machlekes, but the rabbis would agree on the side of the roof, we're already utilizing the walls of the building, then it will be kosher. So you have 2 questions on Rav Huna, his understanding of the Mishnah and the way he's understanding the Mishnah and the machlekes of the Mishnah. So why don't we say that the machlekes, that why don't we have 2 questions on? Why don't the Gemara say we have 2 questions on? We have proof which to prove Rav Huna totally wrong on 2. Again, one is the way the machlekes. One is it about the machlekes speaking, where the machlekes take place. And second one, how the rabbis hold. No, it's one big machlekes. Yeah.
Probably a good place, Rabbi, just to just let everyone know the line we're on. And
first word on the line is who hadin. All right. So Rav Huna answered back that it's the same machlekes. The rabbis and Rabbi Yaakov argue whether we're talking about in the middle of the roof, whether we're talking about the side of the roof. So Rabbi Yaakov holds whether you could put Rabbi Yaakov obviously holds you could place a sukkah in the middle of the roof because he said you could place it on the ground, and he also argues on the rabbis say you can't build this type of 4 beam sukkah in the middle of the roof. Also, the Rabbi Yaakov holds that you could build it on the side of the roof, and there the rabbis also say you can't build it. So I know same machlekes. There's no difference between the side of the roof or the middle of the roof. So then why are we arguing in middle of them? So why is Rav Huna ever bring down to say that the machlekes is in the middle of the roof? Why is he coming? He should have said the machlekes is in the beginning. Why did Rav Huna understand the machlekes on the side? Rav Huna should never have said that. Rav Huna should have said the machlekes is everywhere. Why did Rav Huna specifically say that the machlekes between the rabbis and Rabbi Yaakov is on the side of the roof? If according to Rav Huna, even in the middle of the roof there's a full machlekes. So why are we mentioning the arguing in the middle of the roof? To tell you the power of Rabbi Yaakov. We're focusing on how strong Rabbi Yaakov comes down with this idea that you could create a sukkah with 4 beams, even in the middle of the roof, where you can't really utilize the walls of the building which are already there to pretend that those walls build continue straight up. Rather, it's the middle of the roof or middle of the ground where there's no such wall. And therefore, even in such a place, Rav Yaakov says that's permitted to build a sukkah. Therefore, we're trying to bring out this. So Rav Huna said, we're talking about the middle of the roof to bring out the power of Rav Yaakov. That he holds at even random spots, you got the 4 beams, and we could go ahead and create a sukkah with that. Now, I think over here we're going to start going into how does that work? How does Rav Yaakov say? When you understand that the sukkah has to have 2 walls plus a little bit on the 3rd wall, and over here you have none of that. You have 4 beams, and that's it. So how does that work? The Torah Noat arba kondisam be'eretz v'sikach al gaban. Hold on. Yeah. Torah Noat arba kondisam be'eretz v'sikach al gaban. Now we're learning this out from a different case. This is the case when they used to go to Yerushalayim on the Shalosh Regalim on the holidays, and they went to the desert. So they needed some type of. They had to drink water. So you had to draw from a well. They can't draw from a well if it would be Shabbos because there's no Eruv. So they had a way to create an Eruv. So they had a way to create an Eruv. they would go ahead and they would create some. So middle of the desert, they would put 4 beams, and then they would originally the beams would be round. Then the Gemara says they're going to square it, and then they make it into an L shape. So you have a tefach over here, and you have a tefach over there. So you place that around the well, and now you have a tefach. So you have a tefach by a tefach on each side. And for Eruvin, that was enough for them to draw water and to create a private domain. That's the halal. That was the case. So, if you create 4 kandisa and you put tzach on top, we look at it as if it's already we carve it out. I mean, we square it out. And we go ahead and we cut it into an L, a tefach on each side. And how do we learn this? We learn from the halacha of Yumad, which was the case that we just said. In the desert, they put these 4 beams. All 4 beams are L-shaped, and each side has an amma by amma, or rather 2 ammas on each side. You have an amma, you have amma here on each side, amma here, and amma here, amma here, amma here, amma here. So all 4 sides at least have tefach. All 4 sides at least have a tefach. And lav inidim tefach tefach nidim mishum diyumot. And lav inidim mishum, but you need a tefach. If you don't have a tefach, then you don't have that acceptable eruv out in the desert. According to Yaakov, it's also enough by a sukkah, just like by Eruvin. You need walls, and that little tefach is enough to us to look as if there's a wall. So therefore, Rabbi Yaakov applied that to sukkah. That's why the rabbis say, the rabbi said it has to be until there's 2. It has to be, you need 2 walls. You need 2 halachic walls, and only the third is you're able to only with the third you're able, and the third has to be a little bit. So that's the machlekes. We have the machlekes Rabbi Yaakov and the Chachamim, and according to Rabbi Yaakov, it's enough to have 1 little tefach on each side, and we look as if there's a solid wall, just like the Eruvin. Rabbi said no, the sukkah is going to be different, and a sukkah is definitely going to need. The sukkah is definitely going to need us to go ahead and have 2 full walls and a little bit. The whole machlekes, whether you have it on the roof, whether you have it on the edge of the roof, according to Rabbi Yaakov, is really nothing to do. Do we view it as it's a continuous wall going up? He doesn't even need that. According to him, as long as there's a little bit on each side, as you carve out of the beam, is permissible. According to the rabbis, it's not going to work, and nor is it going to work. This idea of the wall continuing up to Shemayim, you at least need a halachic wall already. So if you're using the edges of the roof, which is not a halachic wall for you because you have the edge of the roof, it's flat. You have nothing. It's not going to help you going straight up. You need a small thing of 10 tefachim, then it could go up. And therefore, also a platform with no guardrails or no actual mechitza, wall unto itself in the big sukkah of 20 amas is not going to help you because your airspace may be less than 20 amas, but you're in your own domain. And you have no walls. You don't have any walls. My airspace may be less than 20 amas because I'm elevated, but I have no walls. And if it's within 4 amas, you're good after. You can have that bending. You can utilize the bending clause. But if there's more than 4 amas from the edge of the wall, we cannot. So therefore, you can't use the bending clause. And you have no walls on your platform. Therefore, you don't have a kosher sukkah.
So we're saying the rules for the sukkah would be different than the Arab.
According to the rabbis. According to Rabbi Yaakov, it's the law of the Eruv in the desert is the same as the sukkah. But it's not how we go. And now we're going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah halacha was that the sukkah has to be airspace of at least 10 tefachim. Menolan, how do we know this? Itmarav, Rav Chanina, Rav Yechanan, Rav Chaviva, that Rav Chanina, Rav Yechanan, and Rav Chaviva, they all say the following. Now, also, Misnu B'Kulei Seder, and then in parentheses, the Gemara adds in, it's not really part of the Gemara, Misnu B'Kulei Seder Mait, whenever in Seder Mait, which we are in, we mention Rav Chanina, Rav Yechanan, Rav Chaviva, these 4. Usually, Rav Yechanan and Rav Yonasan, we switch them out. Okay. Whatever that may be, the Aron HaKadosh that they built in the midbar for the Mishkan. Arain Tisha. So we want to know, how do we know 10 tefachim? Whoever told us anything about how do you know 10 tefachim is a minimum amount for a sukkah? Arain Tisha v'kapayish tefach. Harekan asara, that the arain was 9. The arain was a am and a half. Each am is 6 tefachim, so 6 and a half. So that's an am and a half. That's going to be 9. The kapayish tefach harekan asara, and the kapayish is 10, and harekan asara. So that's how we get to the kapayish was 1 tefach. When I'm going to see later on, how did you know that the cover on top of the arain was 1 tefach? We'll get to that. So right now we have 10. V'chsiv harekan asar. V'chsivin also it writes, and with that. Hashem told Moshe that you're going to know me. I'm going to speak to you from on top of the kapayers. Where I'm going to speak to you on top of the Aron. Now, returning the page to 5a. And also we know that Rabbi held that the Shechina, and from here we learn that the Hashem is the Shechina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu never went below 10 tefachim. Okay. And Moshe and Eliyahu, the two who actually ascended to Shemayim, never went up to whenever went that high to Shemayim. Like it says, the Aretz Nasam Le'Adam, we are supposed to be down here in the land. Now, therefore, we're trying to prove from here that the Kapyrus, the Arain was 10 tefachim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu never went. Now, Kadosh Baruch Hu was always hovering at least 10 tefachim. He spoke from above the Aron, meaning that it's above 10 tefachim. Also, Rabbi Yossi says that the Shechina never went below 10 tefachim into this world, never went below the 10 tefachim mark above the ground. Therefore, if I'm in a sukkah and I want to be, and the point is to have the Shechina with me and have Kadosh Baruch Hu's spirit, and the sukkah has to be at least 10 tefachim. That's where we come from, the idea that a sukkah cannot be lower than 10 tefachim. Okay, because of the Aron was 9, plus the cover of the Aron was 10, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke from atop the Aron. Now we're going to ask a few questions. And the Shechina, the heavenly presence, never went below 10 tefachim. But Ksiva writes, "V'yer Hashem el Har Sinai." It says HaKadosh Baruch Hu descended upon Har Sinai. So we assume he descended upon the actual dirt level. No, we're referring to higher than 10 tefachim. And say HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down, but he always was hovering above 10 tefachim. And further, another question. It says in Zechariah that the day will come when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, figuratively, his feet will be planted on Mount of Olives. So see, it's planted. It's obviously on top of. It's on the dirt level. No, we're talking about again. It's going to be It's going to be hovering 10 tefachim up. Now we're going to focus on the second part. And Moshe and Eliyahu never went up to Shemayim. But Ksiba writes, Moshe Ola El Elikim, meaning, and Moshe went up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says clearly, Hashem Moshe Rabbeinu went up. L'mat Masara, that Moshe Rabbeinu was always 10 tefachim below the level of Shemayim, whatever that is, below the level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever that means. He was always 10 tefachim below. Also, in another verse, that Eliyahu went up to Shemayim. The answer is the Mat Masara, it was lower than 10. The Chsiv writes, Ma'aches Penekise Parshav Olav Ananei. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu was talking to Moshe, and he told him, grab onto the holy throne, the crown of the throne of glory, and I'll spread my cloud upon you. We learn from the HaKadosh Baruch Hu spread his glory and his cloud, whatever, again, the Shechina, above Vananai, and his cloud atop of Moshe Rabbeinu. All of Lamata Masara. Fine. So over here we see, now it's getting a little clearer. Moshe Rabbeinu, he was on the same level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He threw the Shechina over, and we would assume that he was on the same altitude as Hashem. And it says, no, Allah of Lamata Masara. He meant to say that it was spread 10 tefachim above Moshe Rabbeinu. But however, it says grab onto the throne of glory. So assuming he was right there, he was on the same altitude as the throne of glory, and he grabbed onto it. So no, he went up to 10 tefachim, and he went up to 10 tefachim, and then he grabbed onto it. So he was still 10 tefachim below. All right. So now we're going to continue. Now we said that how do you know 10 tefachim? Because it said that Hashem spoke from above the Aron HaKodesh. 10 tefachim, how do the Aron was an amma and a half, and that is 9 tefachim plus the cover was a tefach. The question is, how do you know how do you know the cover was a tefach? It clearly writes that the Aron was going to be an am and a half. An am and a half is equal to 9 tefachim. How do you know that the cover was a tefach? The Tani Rabbi Chanina, because we learned Rabbi Chanina states, Kol HaKelim she'asa Moshe nitna ben Torah midas archan. Every vessel that Moshe was told to create, Hashem said Hashem gave its length, its length, rachban, midas kamasan, it gave its width, it gave its height. Kapayers mida arka umidas rachban nitna. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave its length and its width, midas kamas nitna. Yeah.
Quick review, Rabbi. What exactly is an amma and what is a tefach? I think you called it.
Yeah. So an amma is roughly 1.5 feet.
Okay.
A tefach is about this amount.
Oh,
about
the
that.
height of a thumb.
No, the height of a fist.
Say what?
A fist.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And there is a amma, and an amma is equal to 6 tefachim. 6 tefachim is equal to 1 amma.
Okay.
So an amma and a half is 9 tefachim. Yeah.
Don't also have 5 fucking ammas.
They do. So how do you know the thickness of an amma? So we said that Kodesh Baruch Hu said all the measurements besides for everything, but not for the thickness of the thickness of the cover to the aron. Yeah. So now what we're going to do. So what are we left with? We're going to have to go to the default. What was the thinnest thickness, the shortest thickness, or the smallest thickness of any one vessel made in the Beis HaMikdash? So Shnamar, it says, Vesisai, we're talking about the shulchan, which the showbreads were upon, Vesisai misgaris tefach savit, that there was a border, sort of like a molding around the shulchan, that was a tefach. So that was the smallest thickness ever mentioned in the Torah for the Mishkan. Therefore, we'll apply that to the kapayos. Malon tefach aflan malon tefach afkan tefach. One of the last thin line of 4a-5a. So just like over there, it was a tefach. Over here, we're also going to say tefach. So I'm going to say that we're going to take the small. Since we were left with we don't know what it was. We don't know what the thickness of the cover of the Aron HaKodesh was. Therefore, we're going to fall to the smallest default. And smallest default ever found was a tefach high, tefach thick. Maybe we should learn from the tzitz. From the tzitz was the plate that sat upon the forehead of the Kohen Gadol. Tanya tzitz doime kimin tois shel zav, that a tzitz was like a plate of gold. Rechav beis its bois, it was extremely thin, like a plate. It was like 2 etzbais. It was 2 fingers wide. It went from ear to ear. The cost of Allah beis shitin, and it had 2 lines on it. On the first line, Yud Hey Milamala, it said Yud Hey on the top, first line. The Kodesh Lamed Milamata, it said Kodesh Li on bottom. So it said, you read upwards. Kodesh Li, and Hashem's name was on top. Some argue, I went to Rome where I saw the spoils of the Beis HaMikdash. The cost of Allah of Kodesh Hashem b'shita achas. And it said Kodesh Hashem in 1 line. Okay, might be 2 lines, 1 line, but the point is that it was extremely thin. It was razor thin, the tzitz. So why are we learning out from the shulchan, the border of the shulchan, the molding of the shulchan, which is a tefach? We have smaller kelim in the Mishkan. That's the question. So dan and kli mekliving, dan and kli tachshin. We're learning the halacha of a vessel from a vessel. The Aron was a vessel, contained the Aron Kodesh, and the shulchan is also a vessel, contained the bread. But we're not going to learn a kli, a vessel, from a tachshin, from an adornment. That was the tzitz. The tzitz was an adornment. Really, you look at it as if it was a vessel itself. Therefore, we're not going to learn out from there. We're going to be left with the smallest amount, which was a tefach of the shulchan, of the board around the shulchan. Now we're going to continue. So we're 5 lines down from the wide lines. Benelef mizar. Why did we not learn it from the Damar Mar that there was a crown? That there was a crown that on top of the shulchan there was a border, and on top of the border there was a little bit of a crown going around it. Damar Mar zar mashu, and the crown had to be a mashu. It was a minuscule amount. There was no real. This had to be something there. There's no actual amount. So we also same thing. So why don't you say that was the cover? The cover of the aron was a mashu, was ever thick as you have to make in order to be a proper cover. Dan and kli mikli, dan and kli mehachshukli. That we learned out a vessel from a vessel. We're not learning out a vessel from an add-on to a vessel, because in order for the shulchan to work, it didn't need the crown. The crown was just to beautify the shulchan. So therefore, it doesn't have the crown does not take on the property of a proper vessel. Rather, it's an addition to a vessel. Therefore, we can't apply that to the kapayos. Now, if that's true, the molding, the border of the shulchan was also an add-on. It was to beautify it. So the answer was that no, it wasn't to beautify it. That according to this opinion is that the border was actually, the shulchan was placed on top of the border. So you have the 4 legs. They connected the 4 legs with this border, which was actually connecting all the legs together, and was the basis for the entire shulchan. So that border was not just an add-on to beautify. It was actually part of the shulchan. The entire shulchan rested upon it. Therefore, it has a full halak. So we would view it as a vessel. Therefore, we could learn the aron, the top of the aron, the papyrus, from the border to be considered a vessel. And so we're learning a vessel from a vessel, which was a tefach. Now, fine. This according to the one that holds miskeres was on bottom. But according to the one that holds that it was on top, that this border was on top. Therefore, it was only for beauty. Nothing was resting on it. That's no different than the crown. The crown we can't learn out from because it's an add-on for beauty. Therefore, according to the one that holds that the border was also just for beauty, what are you going to say now? How is he going to go ahead and learn that a sukkah is 10 tefachim? Because all he has is 9 plus a little. He has 9 of the aron plus, but according to him, you have nothing to learn. We don't have a place to learn that the cover of the aron was a tefach. Therefore, what do? Ella, rather have a whole new answer. Danin davar shina by Torah mida davar shina no by Torah, that we're learning something that the Torah gave a measurement for, meaning the Torah gave a measurement for most of the kapayos, for most of the cover to the Aron HaKodesh, from something which the Torah gave a measurement to, and Hashem gave a measurement to the border. So we're just taking something that the Torah gave a measurement for. The Torah never really gave a measurement for the tzitz. The Torah really never gave a measurement for the crown. It was nothing specific. It has to be whatever it has to be in order to be there, in order to be actually to add on beauty. But there was never a dedicated amount. The smallest dedicated amount we could find is the tefach of the border of the shulchan. Therefore, we're going with that. And the Torah never went and get a measurement at all for the tzitz. And Tosfos adds on that then how do we get the we send measurements for the tzitz? We said that was it was 2 hair breadths and also 2 hand breadths, and also we said for the zar has to be mashu. We said for the crown. The Tosfos explained that's only the rabbanon. The rabbis made a set measurements that didn't have to. Okay, we're going to end there. I just realized something. I must have skipped the line, right?
Say what?
I must have skipped the line. So I skipped the line. In the last thin line, it says V'neiluf Mikalim Gufayu. Why are we learning out from covers? So we have an extra 2 minutes. I'll go back to that. We said that we're learning from the cover. The cover is a tefach because we're learning from the kli of the tefach. Our question is, why are you learning from the cover? Why are you learning from a cover? Learn from other kelim, other actual kelim. Why are you learning only out from the cover? So why are you going with the smallest amount basically? Why go with other amounts? Why tefach? Go with 2 tefachim, 3 tefachim. The Torah says all different measurements. So the answer is the end of the first of the middle line, the last in line. Tefasta meruba like tefasta, meruba tefasta. That when there are many times, this is an overall rule in life, that when you have the right to grab something, you grab the smallest amount, because you know you have the right to do something, as Rashi explains, but you don't know how much you're allowed to take. So if you take too much, you'll be called a robber. You're gazlan. You're stealing. So you always go with the smallest amount, and therefore you know you're safe. I'm allowed to take something. You look at a table, it's all different sizes. So someone says you're allowed to take something from the table, and there's a $800, $800 laptop, and there's a $200 phone. Take the $200 phone because you know you're not stealing, because you said take something. That's the littlest amount. Same thing over here. The Torah tells us overall rule in Shas is you always take the littlest amount. The Torah, we don't know what it is. We don't know what to compare the tefach to which kli, the cover of the urn to. Therefore, we take the smallest amount. Therefore, it's a tefach. And at the end of the day, the real answer is, how do we know that the urn was a tefach? In order to sum up the 10 tefachim of a urn, that was because, as we explained, the reason is because the Torah gave us an amount, and the Torah gave us, we're only comparing to what the Torah gave an amount for. And then we realize the rule of fast like the fasta, you should take the smallest amount. And we're not learning from kli to kli. We're just learning what the Torah gave it to. Okay, we're going to end there. We're up to Rafuna Amar Mahacha. Thank you so much.